Hi, welcome back to the garden. Now that the weather is cooler, I really need to clean out this greenhouse to make room for some things that have been outside for the summer but are not quite ready to go indoors for the winter yet. They're not winter hardy. They're usually houseplants that come and spend the summer outside, and the temperature has been dropping. We have not had our first frost yet, but it is imminent. And as much as it's been really nice having a little extended season on our cherry tomatoes and some peppers that I have in here, unfortunately the time has come to rip all these things out. So I'm harvesting whatever I can, anything that's starting to turn color, teeny tiny ones too. And I'm going to bring all these in the house and then rip out all these plants. It's been a pretty good season for tomatoes. I didn't grow a whole lot this year, but I do have about a half a dozen cherry tomato plants in this greenhouse. My favorite, which are the Sun Gold, they have been absolutely fantastic. I've just harvested all of these less than a week ago, and for being mid-October, they're ripening really quickly. This year I've really been rethinking how I'm going to continue to use this greenhouse going forward. We built it in the fall of 2019, and we've been planting things during the summer and winter actually into the ground with pretty good success. But at this point the soil needs a really good refresh. So I'm faced with the possibility of having to dig out most of the soil, at least a foot down, adding compost and all that. But after a bit of reflection, I've decided that a much better use of this space would be to maximize the amount of seedlings and pots that I can have in here and be able to move things in and out a lot easier. And with the amount of annuals that I'm growing at this point, more room for seedling space is definitely the most important thing, especially in the spring when things need more protection and there are such a huge amount of seedlings that I'm trying to care for. So what I'm going to do is clear out all the plants, lift a lot of the bricks and pavers that are already in here, a lot of this soil, and then I'm going to create a brand new floor out of some bricks and pavers that I already have on hand. And I have to do this soon because our first frost is imminent. And I have those plants that I have outside that really need to come in for a little extra protection in the greenhouse before it gets cold enough to bring them indoors for the winter. So let's go have a look at those next. It is breezy and quite chilly today, if you can't tell by the jacket. First up are my citrus plants, and I have two of those. This giant thing right here, this is my Meyer lemon tree that I grew from seed. It's about 3, maybe 4 years old, and that's a bit young for flowering, so it's not flowering yet. But since it is grown from a seed and not grafted, I don't really know what I'm going to get, and I'm okay with that. It's a gorgeous house plant. I have found it so far pretty easy to care for, and I'm pretty proud that I grew this from seed, and it is doing really well. Moving a few of these over so that we can have a look at this one. This is my key lime. This is my second citrus. I only have these two, and this one I did buy from a nursery this spring. Now, it was in flower when I bought it, although having just been shipped, the stress of all that caused most of those blossoms to drop. And the few tiny little limes that did develop didn't end up going anywhere. They shriveled up eventually, which was fine. This was brand new to me, and it has since started to flower again. So some of those are dropping off, but right up here, there are a few little limes that are starting to develop, and I don't know, again, if those are going to continue to develop. I would much rather just have a stronger plant at this point, and this one hasn't seemed to do as well as the lemon has, but like I said, it was new to me this spring. I've had it about 6 months, so it did need to be repotted fairly recently, which I've done, and it's looked a lot happier since. So who knows, maybe a couple of these limes will start to develop and we'll actually get a little lime harvest off this at some point in the new year. And this one, so the next one, is a bay tree. So it looks like it's leaning a little bit. I think that was due to where I had it kind of jammed against some other pots. So I'll make sure that I place it in the house so that it will grow towards the light and stand itself up a little bit. You could stake it a bit too, but I think that's probably unnecessary. This has been really happy. It's grown, let's see, since I brought it outdoors for the summer, This is all new growth. So it was about this high coming outside in the spring, and now it is this high. So bay makes a really nice houseplant. I found it also fairly easy to care for it. I love having bay as a houseplant because then when I need a leaf here and there, which isn't all that often really, I'd much rather have a fresh one than one that's been harvested who knows where and then dried out and kept in a bag for who knows how long. I also have a pot of calla lilies that I got from my garden club. I'm going to bring these indoors for the winter as well and keep it as a houseplant and hopefully propagate these in the summer. And then we get to the good stuff. These are my turmeric plants. This is my first year growing turmeric, mostly because I had difficulty finding fresh turmeric that I could actually plant that was local. I started them off on a heat mat in February, I think. They took a really, really long time to get going, but then once they got their roots down in the ground and got outside to some warmer temperatures, they really took off. And they look really good. The foliage looks fine. This right here is just mostly wind damage, and it's mostly on the older leaves actually. The new leaves, like this one here, looks just fine. But problem is you can't really tell what's going on below the soil. And since I have two of these, we're gonna harvest one right now, and then the other one I'm gonna try to keep growing and bring it indoors for the winter. Here we go. Pretty good roots at the bottom. I would not say this is root bound yet. I'm trying to decide whether or not we're going to put the other one in a bigger pot. I'm thinking not. If the roots look like this, I think that's probably just fine. Let's get this soil off and see what we've got. Oh, so there's a piece that didn't grow. That's fine. Oh, there's not much. There's one more small shoot here. It was growing. I think we just need a really, really long growing season for these. Tumeric's also fairly potent, so we don't need a whole lot to actually use it. So those look like the tubers right there. That is not much. These are all roots. We can't really use those. There's a few more on those. Those are usable tubers. A few more on this side. So that's not too bad. It's not a huge loss. So, I mean, that's not too bad. We'll definitely keep that other one in the pot, and if this is all that's in there, I'm not going to pot them up. I'm just going to leave them as is. I'll give them a water and a feed. These ones, I'm going to chop off the tops, take these in the house and wash them off, and then I'll see how much actual usable turmeric we have in here. Before I do that though, I also have a pot of ginger to take a look at. So my ginger. It's so pathetic, I almost forgot it was sitting right here the whole time when I was talking about all my other plants. Now, I've grown ginger a few years in a row with really good success, but this is not one of those years. This ginger is frankly pathetic, and I'm not even sure it's worth saving. I think what I'm going to do is dump it out of this pot and put it into a much smaller pot, and then at that point we'll leave it in the greenhouse for a few weeks, see if it shows any new growth, and if not, I'm just going to dump it and then start fresh again in the spring. Ginger and turmeric both need a lot of consistent warmth, so if your house tends to be chilly in the winter, it might go completely dormant, and that doesn't mean it's dead, it just means it's dormant. You can put the pots somewhere for a couple of months and then take them back out when it starts to warm up, and as long as there's enough heat, they'll pop right back up again. But let's get this out of the pot and see what it looks like. In hindsight, this may have just been too big of a pot. Oh yeah, there's rotten tubers in there. Looks like I had a lot more in this pot than I thought I did. That one's rotten. That one's mostly rotten. Yeah, that is not worth saving. So that's no big loss. It's easy to come across fresh ginger just in the grocery store any time of year. So I'll find some more in the spring, some nice looking pieces, and plant them again and pay much more attention to them this year for sure. I almost forgot. This is one of 2 pots of sweet potatoes that I had growing. The first one I dug up about 10 days ago, and it was actually quite a success. The tubers were really, really long, but they were really, really thin. It was a little bit strange. I didn't call it a loss though, because these pots aren't really all that big. I know they would prefer to grow in soil, and on all honesty, I think I didn't feed them enough, but I only dug up one of them because I wanted to see what an extra few weeks would do, and if maybe those tubers would thicken up a little bit. So I am not going to dump this one out today. This is going to go in the greenhouse with all of these things. So that being said, I better clean out the greenhouse. So that may be a little anticlimactic because it's not really all that cleaner in here. We got rid of all the plants, the tomatoes, the peppers, a few weeds, and are left with a big giant mess. But that's okay because doing the whole floor is going to be a full day's job. But if I'm not planting into the ground, I can definitely make more use of space. And I have a couple of other things that I'm going to do in here that I've been thinking about for years now. This thought really only came to me this morning of ripping out the growing space and just completing the floor. And I'm really excited about the possibilities of that. So please be sure to subscribe to the channel if you aren't already, and be sure to pop back next week, and I'll see you then. But for now, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.